Hello and welcome back to another video. Today's video is a little bit different because, for once, someone actually reached out to me to review a product. So the good folks over at Dehancer sent me some emails about checking out their new plugin, Dehancer Film, which is available for a lot of different platforms. So there's a photo plugin for Lightroom and Capture One and I think Affinity Photo, and there's also a video plugin now that's available for DaVinci Resolve, and I think a Premiere Pro version is in the works or in a beta. I told them that I'm not really big on video, but I might try some out, but really I'm going to focus today on the photo plugin for Lightroom specifically because that's what I use, but like I said, it's also available for other platforms. A couple of disclaimers up front is that Dehancer sent me... A disclaimer up front is that Dehancer sent me a 1-month trial key so that I could test out the plugin in its full version. However, they did not influence any of my opinions, and they said that I would be okay to say whatever I wanted to say and give my honest opinion, which is what I'm going to do in the next bit of the video. And you might notice a few more cuts in this video than normal because I just recently recovered from COVID myself, and my voice is a little, still a little bit scratchy to say the least. So I may have taken some pauses while recording my screen to clear my throat. And yeah, I think that's all about what I have to say. Let's we're gonna jump into my screen now. You're gonna see me edit some photos, and then we'll regroup on the other side to talk about it. Also, say hello to Kirby. Kirby. You might hear her in the background of some of the video because she was being quite loud, but we'll see. So I'm just going to jump right into Lightroom, and I've created a small selection of photos that we can use to test out how the plugin works. And this is the base photo, and I've taken pictures using two different cameras, both Fuji cameras. One is the X100T. So you'll see everything with a 23mm fixed is probably going to be from the X100T, and if it has Saif at the start of the name, that's from the X100T, and if it says SR20, that's from the XT20. Anyway, what we're going to do is, first of all, there is a series of settings that Dehancer actually recommends to get the best output from the plugin, so you can actually put that into a preset if you want. That's what I've done, and I'm going to revert back to that. And we're going to just test out the plugin. So I'm going to right click, and you can select edit in, and then you can pick Dehancer Lightroom.exe, and you can choose to do a copy, the original, and you can choose a bunch of other options. I'm just going to leave everything as is. We're going to hit edit, and it should pop up in just a second. Okay, here it is. So with this window open, you can now see a bunch of the film stocks that they have emulations for. So some of the ones that I've tried out that I think are quite nice are some of the Agfa ones are quite nice. Some of the more like consumer stocks that I use are over here, like there's C200, there's also some for Fuji Natura 1600. There's quite a lot of these. Let's try something a little bit more common, like Kodak Color Plus, or I think there's one for gold, which is what I've been using a lot recently. So let's have a look. And I think that right off the bat, the presets do a pretty decent job of getting you a nice rendition, and you've got a bunch of other settings up on top of what the basic preset does, so you can adjust the temperature if you want. You can also change the black point, white point. A couple of the things that I really like. Okay, so there's a film grain option, and you can turn that on. By default, it's turned off, but you can turn that on, and it's kind of strong. So it's not something that I really use much myself, but I do like the halation and the bloom options. I think they give you like that nice little. It's got a bit of like a nostalgic effect, something that I think you'll get a lot in lab scans sometimes, and the halation is nice for things like Cinestill, so I would recommend using that. So One other thing that I actually really like about this is, even though you don't get a lot of additional options here, or at least they're slightly different to what you might be used to, you can always just take that and then go back into here and use the settings that were made. May have just lost that one. Yeah, sorry. So the changes that you've made, and then you can just make additional changes here in Lightroom. So you can actually reduce your exposure and use all of the classic settings that you're already used to. So, you know, I might just add certain things here and there. I like to add a little bit of warmth sometimes, so do something like that. Maybe even just change it up a little bit more, or you can even select your white balance based on something in the scene, or even let Lightroom decide. There's a couple of things that I may have missed on my initial one, like lens corrections, but you can turn them on and off after the fact too, that's fine. And yeah, you know, I think that's a pretty good place, and it's pretty close to how I would have edited it myself. And even if you think that, like, you know, adding the other plugin is a lot more work, what you can do is, if you're doing a set of photos, once you're actually done making one, you can just create a preset from these adjustments, and that way you don't have to go back into the plugin if you don't want to. But, you know, I like that the plugin has is pretty quick. I've really seen no issues with it, and I think that it does a pretty good job of showing you the previews on the side. I like the fact that, you know, this little window over here shows you a preview with the image instead of you having to click it and actually getting it. But at the same time, like, it's not super slow to even click it and turn it back on. So say something like Provia, which I think that this is quite a good look for this type of photo. You can try something different if you prefer. You can try something like you know, there's Superior, there's Ektar is really nice for pictures, for landscape pictures specifically, and pictures of colors. But, you know, it's not always like one preset will work for everything, so you do have to play around a little bit. I'm not going to speak too much about accuracy, because I think that it's very hard to create something that works for every photo, because at the end of the day, film has that character baked into the chemistry, where like into the actual film stock. But with a preset, it's a little bit harder, I think, to make something that just works all the time perfectly for every picture that you want to use it for. But I think that this is, like, I'm pleased with the rendition from these. I don't know if it's necessarily for everyone, but I think that if you want a good place to start off, this is as good a place as any. And, you know, I think it's quite a nice interface. I like some of the options, specifically, like I mentioned earlier, the bloom is really nice. I think it works out really well and gives you a good set of controls for it too, so you can choose how strong it is, or, you know, how it's going to affect certain places. And yeah, I think it just does a really good job there. Let's try out something with the Cinestill, and so we can have a look at the halation. So you can see how the halation immediately pops up on the little highlights over on the edges over here. So I'm going to turn it off. You should be able to see the difference immediately. Yeah, look at that. That's actually probably some of the best I've seen for something like this. It's not a look that I go for a lot, but I know that's a very popular look. So if that's something you're looking for, I think that, you know, this is a very good place to get it. It's really easy to use, in my opinion, and I think overall it's a very quick process, and you don't even lose the original that you were working on. So you see, like, this is the edited version, and this is the edited version, and this is the original. So you get to keep a copy, and then say if you wanted to turn that into a preset, you could just go Cinestill, and you know, make sure that you're selecting everything that you need to, and then maybe I can just go on to, say, this shot, and then just smack that on. I'm not saying that this is definitely the best way. I still think that if you're going to be using this, you may as well jump in and actually do the work yourself. But you know, if you're in a rush, you could definitely just make a preset like this and try it out. It's definitely not the worst thing you could do. Try a couple more just to have a look at how it deals with different scenarios. So let's try something like this. I'm going to edit that into Dehancer. Now, I think that some of the ones that I've really liked using is the Astrum Color Negative. I think that looks really nice. It has like a very nice like old school look to it. I really do enjoy the Fuji Natura. I've used it a couple times now. I think it isn't the most vibrant, but I think it's got a lot of like really nice contrast. But maybe for this we should try something a little bit more saturated, maybe like a Velvia. So let's try this. Let's actually raise the exposure a little bit, the contrast touch. And so you've got a lot of like pretty easy to use settings here, and I kind of like how this looks this way. So I'm going to export it like this, and then maybe I'll add a touch of contrast back once we're in Lightroom. Just adjust this. I like adjusting the levels here. I think I have a slightly better understanding of it over here. But then again, I haven't played around with the Dehancer plugin too much, so maybe there's a lot of built-in settings for that too. So you probably don't actually have to do it this way, but it's just the way that I found easiest for me. And yeah, you know, I'd say that this is a pretty good version of this photo, and I would be happy to ship it like this. Okay, yeah, it's a little bit better with some slightly better white balancing there. Actually, I think I liked it to be a little bit cooler, maybe like a in between, maybe like a 3. We'll add a little bit of pinkness back over here, and yeah, I'd say I'm quite pleased with that. And let's try one more. So I'm going to show you how this photo looked on its own, and I think that this was quite good. But this is the digital version, and we're going to try and see if we can try to get a little bit more of a nicer color in those greens and get that purple to shine a little bit better. Just going to pop it into Dehancer and see what works best. I have a feeling something like Velvia or Ektar will really work out nicely here. I know that in my experience, something like Fuji Pro 400H looks really nice with greens and also purples. Ooh, I do like how that looks. I would maybe saturate it a little bit more, but we can work on that once we've got it out of here. Let's just try to keep some of tonal contrast high. Get that. Going to increase the black point a little bit so those shadows don't fade out too much. While I'm here, let's have a look at, maybe we'll add a little bit of bloom to this. I think it might work out in our favor. So once we're back here, I'm going to crush the shadows a little bit, take the blacks down, and maybe just add a little bit of saturation to the purples here with our HSL. And maybe just the overall saturation will go up a little bit. You know, I'm basically learning how to use this at the same time. I mean, I've played around with it a little bit, but not to a great extent. I do like that it is, for the most part, pretty easy to use. I didn't, like I'm saying, you know, I haven't had too much time to play with it, and even then, like, I'm having a pretty decent time just getting the pictures to look how I want, and I think that that's a good way of how this picture should look. Maybe I'll export this for now, and I'll try to make my own version off screen, and we'll compare the two just to see how it would work. If I have a lot of presets in place already for the way I like to edit things, but if you don't, and you've never done something, like you've never created your own presets, or you haven't had a lot of practice in trying to get your colors to look either like film, or just you like certain aspects, or you just like certain renditions that you want to replicate a mix of certain films, like you don't have to actually go for a film look, but you like certain colors to look certain ways, and I think this is a good way to get that. But yeah, let's do one more. I really like the warmth in the original picture, but we're gonna try to do this in the Dehancer plugin with the film simulations and see how they work out. So now I've got the plugin open. Let's have a look at some of these. So see, like right off the bat, just plugging in this Agfacolor XRS 200 preset, it's already looking a lot like I had it initially in camera. So I think that this is a really good, like it's toned down a little bit of the brightness, which I like. The colors are nice and muted, but they look still quite realistic in my opinion. There's a slightly warmer version over here with the expired 2006 RSX2, but I like this one specifically. I'll try a couple more just to have a look. The Astrum color negative always looks good in my opinion. You can also check out some of the black and white ones while we're here, since we haven't seen any of those yet. And I think that like there's a good variety of looks, and you can actually if you want, you can filter them here. You can filter them by favorites, color, so you can choose your favorites. You can do color negatives, motion picture, a bunch of them. There's also some exotic ones like Lomochrome purple, but let's go back to what we had, which was the Agfacolor. And I think that this, like on its own, I would be happy to push this just the way it is. Like I would export this. I haven't noticed this push and pull slider before, but that's pretty cool. You can get a little bit more out of it if you want, but let's just leave that at 0 because I like the way it already looks. I would be happy to export this version of this already. I think that's a really good job on that part. I actually want to go back to something with a little bit of green, maybe this one. We can check out some of the more wacky ones, because I noticed that they have the Lomochrome purple, and I want to see how that looks on this, or maybe even some black and white, just to get a better idea of how things look. But also we're going to start off with the Agfacolor just so you can see. I think that this looks really, really accurate to what I would expect out of like a regular point and shoot camera loaded with some regular old film. Usually I'm shooting something like Gold 200 or Color Plus. You can also actually select the films from the drop down here if you don't want to go through the thumbnails down there. But let's try something like the Lomochrome. See, that looks pretty accurate in my opinion. I think that's a really good job. And I'm going to actually make it a little bit more contrasty over here. And we're just gonna see, look at that, that looks fantastic. I think this is really well done. And Lomochrome, like, I've tried to make a preset for it before, and it works, I would say, decently, but this is a much better version of anything that I have ever made for that particular film. But let's also try some black and whites while we're here. Actually, you know what? Let's export this because I like this. We'll keep it, and we'll go back and we'll just make another version. This is another great thing is your original's always here, and you're just making a copy. You can probably hear my cat in the background. That's okay. Anyway, let's try a black and white one over here. So let's try a classic. Like, okay, well, I mean, Agfa scale is quite good. I really like how that looks already. Actually, I would leave that. But there's also some motion picture ones. There's Eastman Kodak's Double X. There's HP5, fantastic, very classic film. 6B2 across, but I like how the Agfa looks here. I'm just a big fan of Agfa films, I would say. And we're just going to go back and add in a little bit of everything. I think that's good. I would be happy to ship this version too. In case you're wondering what's going on here, we had a big storm here recently, and a lot of the trees in my neighborhood were felled, and a lot of places lost power. I myself lost power for about like 40 hours, but thankfully I got mine back pretty early. There's still some people without power, but it's working. It's already been like almost a week now, and things are just, I think maybe like 30,000 people still left without power, and 140,000 people got their power back. So 170,000 people were affected initially. So it's bad, and this is some of the aftermath of that storm. But yeah, so let's stop on Lightroom here, and we'll come back. I'll come back in a second with some versions of things that I've exported from Dehancer, and then some of my versions. We'll just compare them a little bit. I mean, just to show you like how it would differ from how I would do it without the plugin. But here I'm relying heavily on the plugin and not trying to tweak it too much. So you're getting a slightly different version, but you can take what comes out of the plugin and then tweak it as much as you want as well. So there's no stopping. It's not like you're expected to export straight from the plugin. You can bring it back into Lightroom like it is here, and then you can change it up as much as you want. A couple of things that I like to do most of the time. I'm just gonna do all of that like I normally do. And yeah, I think that's a good place for this. I'll export this just so we have that too. And yeah, I'll come back with some samples in a second. Okay, so we have some of the finished pictures here. So I'm just gonna run through them really quick. So this is how I chose to edit it, which is a little bit warmer. I kept some of that warmth, and this is the output from Dehancer. I think right off the bat you can notice that this has a lot more of a more real looking skin tone, and this is slightly more stylized in my opinion. But there's this like organicness to how it fades, which is really nice, and I think you'll see that in a lot of these pictures. So this is my version of the black and white picture of the trees, and this is how it came out of Dehancer. And I think the highlights here show what I mean about that organic tonality in just the shadows here in this picture, and then you can see it again in the highlights here. I think you're gonna see it overall through the frame. I think there's like a bit of like some sort of a matte filter going on, I think. Anyway, this is my version of the flowers, and you can see that I chose to keep some of the greens in a little bit here, but in the Dehancer version I went with that Cinestill filter, which gave us that nice little halation around the tips here, and the greens are a little bit yellower. But they're different looks, but that's just how it came out without tweaking it too much. I could probably even try to get a mix between the two by taking this picture and then doing a little bit more in Lightroom. This is my version of the man with the dogs, and you can see that this is going to be a little bit more saturated, but I think you'll get a better idea of how the colors come out. They come out a lot more. They do come out looking a lot more uniform, I would say, in the film presets from Dehancer than the way that I do it normally. I like to get a little bit more punchy color, but it's really up to different tastes. But this is just to give you an idea of how it looks when you use a Dehancer preset without changing it too much. And yeah, I think that covers it quite well. Let's jump into my final thoughts. So that was definitely interesting. I don't really show myself editing or really record my screen ever, so that was my first time using OBS. If it was a little bit iffy, I apologize. I'm trying my best. But let's talk about my opinions. I'm gonna say right off the bat that I think that it's a really well-made plugin. I think it works really well. I think it's easy to use. This was only my third or fourth time using it. I've I tested it out a little bit before I started the video just to make sure that I could use it and, set it up on my computer to make sure everything was running smoothly. But beyond just running 1 or 2 pictures through it, I hadn't really used it much at all. Because I sort of wanted to see what it would be like to just sort of plug and play with the plugin and see how it renders just without trying to tweak it too much. And I think that it was really intuitive and easy to use, which is great. There's a lot of features that I didn't even touch on because there's just so much. I'll talk about some of the ones that I really like. I liked the halation feature. I think it does a really nice job. The bloom is nice because it gives you that like lower contrast, slightly more diffused look, which is good. In my opinion, I really like that. I think that a bunch of the pre-built presets or let's say profiles look really nice. I don't know about, like I said, in my time testing it, I'm not really so much looking for accuracy in a lot of cases. I'm just really looking for whether or not it looks about what you would expect, which I think it does. I think it's a good place to start. So whether or not I would use it personally is a little bit different because I've been editing for a really long time and I have a bunch of presets for a lot of the film looks that I try to go for already. However, if I was trying to make something new or if there was something that I wanted to just play around with, I think that I would definitely recommend this is a good place to start. So if you've never tried a preset pack or a plugin to get a sort of film look, I think this is as good a place as any to start. I think it's really good for that type of thing. And there's definitely like worse options, I'm sure, just slapping on a basic preset. So I think that you get a lot of control with this plugin. I think it's quite powerful. It gives you a lot of good features inside the plugin itself, but you can also take what the profiles from the plugin, you can put that on, and then you can actually take it back into Camera Raw or Lightroom or whatever you're using and tweak it further. You get your HSLs, you get your tone curves, your color grading, all of your tools back. So I think that's really cool. It's not destructive. It makes a copy, so you always have your original if you want to work with that, but you can always also just revert. So I think it's really cool for that type of stuff. I also want to talk about some of the profiles that I really enjoyed. I like the Agfa color ones. And specifically, some things that I would suggest is in the future, maybe something like an Agfa Vista would be nice to see because personal favorite film. I know that there's a C200 one in there, and I've heard that Agfa Vista and C200 are the same film. But, if you've seen my comparison video, I'm going to try and link it somewhere. You'll know that like I thought that C200 lacked a little bit of that punchiness and that saturation that Agfa Vista has. And I felt the same way about the profile that was in there, so maybe a specialized Agfa Vista filter would be very nice. There's also, I really enjoyed the Lomochrome one, which I'll mention is not a look for everyone. It's not even a look that I use very often, but it can be fun from time to time. And, since there is a Lomochrome one, I feel like it shouldn't be too much to ask for something like an Aerochrome, because that's what Lomochrome is based off of, and Aerochrome is notoriously expensive and discontinued, so a lot of people I'm sure want something where they can just get that look without having to pay hundreds of dollars for a single roll. So if you guys watch this Dehancer, maybe just give it a shot, or if you do put it in, let me know. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say, really. I think I really enjoyed it. Thank you to Dehancer for letting me try it out and for sending me a trial. And actually, if you are looking to try out this stuff, you can get a free trial on their website. I'll link that below. But if you want to purchase Dehancer Film or any of the other products that they have, they've actually been so kind to provide me an affiliate code, so you can use the discount code SAIF10. I'm also going to put that in the description. But yeah, would you look at that, we got an actual affiliate code for once. That's crazy. But yeah, so if you want to purchase it, you will get 10% off your purchase, and check it out. I personally was very pleased, and I'm sure it'll only get better as they work on it more and add more and more things. But yeah, that's it from me, and I'll see you in the next one.